All right, welcome back, everyone. Connecting Dots 2 here. We are Tuesday, April the 11th. This is a kind of like a follow-up to the hangout I had yesterday, or it wasn't a hangout. I was letting everyone know that I'm getting prepared to doing this expedition here, where we're going to actually do some monitoring together and exposing the frauds. So essentially, I received quite a few good positive comments, a couple of emails. That was good, and I figured I'd follow up with some of what was said in that video regarding the Navy, the low count of fish that were taken back in 1949, and I'm glad I followed up with that. Thank you very much for those emails, because it was those emails that kind of spurred me down this path. The information I'm going to share with you has all come about because you folks have sent these emails and asked me some good questions. So I figured, you know what, this is puzzling me also. And I had started a research probably about 2 years ago on salmon runs. It was about a year and a half ago, I guess. Anyways, long story short, I never finished it up, and this is great because what I found here now just kind of really paints a whole better picture about the salmon runs and why they're healthy in certain areas and why they're not at certain other areas. So hopefully this will be as educational for you as it was for myself as I was discovering all this information. So one of the things people have said, and I've heard this many times before, is every time you do a research on YouTube for Fukushima, they're presented with the same group of people or other YouTube channels that have very few subscribers. However, they all mirror either Dana's videos, Miss Milky the Clown's videos, or Kevin Blanch. People have said this. This is, folks, I don't know what to say. This is how this group on YouTube, this is how they operate, this is how they control the agenda, the themes, the truth. This is a psyop operation here, YouTube. You're totally being controlled. Anyways, I don't want to get off track, but I've been making a point of that for a long time, that this is a Illuminati control system, and they're here to disinform. And anyway, so hopefully by the time you're done here, you'll be informed. And one of the things that I was mentioning, how they've been saying, and I'm speaking about Beautiful Girl by Dana, Kevin Blanch, Thomas Ackerman, Miss Milky the Clown, many others, how the Pacific Ocean has been, it's finished, it's wiped out. It's, in fact, they even have the audacity to call it the Great Pacific Genocide. I mean, 3 hours ago, Kevin Blanch, can you see that? The Great Pacific Genocide. It's real. It's 90% collapse of the Pacific. And I keep repeating this all the time. It's like, if it really did collapse, let's say even 50%, guess what's going to happen to the prices of seafood? Boom. All Pacific caught seafood is going to rise. Why? Because there's less of it. It's collapsed. And now he has the audacity to come out here and say that 90% of it is collapsed. And again, it's always Fukushima news, but no actual, monitoring, or he has no samples. There's never been a test done on any seafood at all. I mean, we've had a couple of tests in days back, but it was all trace amounts. And I'll bet you, as soon as I get my gamma spectrometer and I start doing testing, how much you want to bet? That's what I'll be finding also, trace amounts. But I'm doing it because you people on YouTube, as well as myself, we want the truth. And the truth is not we can't rely on our governments. I've said that every time the government has done testing on any seafood, and that includes the Canadian and the American government. Anytime they've done testing, they have found, listen to this, zero, zip, zilch, nothing. In fact, they even have the audacity, like a Canadian government, one time they published the results of, they tested 26 fish. I'm like, oh, wow. Couldn't go 100, eh? Had to make it 26. Anyways, long story short, they didn't find it either. Same thing when the Food and Drug Administration had done the testing up in Alaska back in 2015. No, nothing. Yet every independent, and that's the point that I'm going to keep stressing here, independent, because I am an independent person. I've been on YouTube, but doing the economic stuff. That's why you may notice at the top of my YouTube channel, a banner I've been on YouTube since 2009 and 2009 talking about gold and silver and fiat currencies and all this other stuff that I'm now doing over at my Silver Gold Man YouTube channel. But however, you know, these people, it's nonstop collapse. There's no testing, and I want the data, and that's the long-term goal here. Anyways, let's continue on here. I got a little off track. I want to jump right into the information that I was presenting, or not the information, I should say. I'm going to leave you or follow through from the thread over at connectingdots1.com. So if you missed yesterday's show, one of the things I was saying, that in case you don't have a Geiger counter and you've come across these YouTube videos like Dana Durnford, where he's telling you that along the West Coast, the radiation in his hometown is over 200 counts per minute, 260 counts per minute. Unbelievable. Anyways, I'm sorry if you've been feared. You know, I'm here to share with you the data, and hang tight, because the information I got for you here with the U.S. Navy, the depleted uranium that they're aware of, I'm telling you, this is going to be an eye-opener for a lot of you. Like I said, people have said that before. They enjoy my videos because of the information, a ton of information, the research that I do. It's not about my face. It's about presenting facts. So hang tight. We got some facts, as well as a new word I just found out, fecundity. Do you know what fecundity is? Anyways, long story short, if you don't have a Geiger counter and you've been scared the bejesus right out of you, I was saying in yesterday's show, there's a link here. You can go click on this link, and it'll bring you to a series of other links that you can pick. So depending where you live in the world, I was saying, you know, especially USA, because we're all told we're being radiated here on the West Coast, you're able to come to this website, and these are individuals just like yourself who've taken upon themselves to buy a gamma spectrometer, a Geiger counter, various types, and you can participate. I've said that before. If you want to participate, there's a list of compatible Geiger counters, and they upload their information. It's refreshed every minute, so you get to see what's happening at various spots. As you notice, there's a whole lot of them here on the West Coast and a whole lot over on the East Coast. Long story short, this is where you can do that information. You can gather that information. Let's jump into the thread that I started, because it was the key words that were ringing through when I was initially doing my research on yesterday's show regarding the salmon. And you may recall at some point I shared with you a statement that I'd found that the Army Corps of Engineers, where they've been monitoring the salmon at this one specific area, this year there was the lowest levels since 1949. Well, that was the important one, guys, and I'll get into that, because that 1949 turns out that was it was hot summer indeed, and this all plays a key role with salmon population. I'm telling you, I'm so happy I've done this research, because this is something that a lot of you are going to be able to talk about now, share about it. You'll have some knowledge now. You'll understand salmon and how they reproduce and the word fecundity, and you'll be able to go around telling people, hold on a second, we've got the Navy here telling us they're dumping this, they're doing this, they're blowing this up, they're going to kill that. You'll make some sense of the whole story, hopefully, here, and you won't be Fukushima freaked out. So remember the 1949 and the drought, because that was the key thing. So the other thing that I found, well, you all know here how there's been a whole bunch of storms all of a sudden when we've been, you know, faced with years of drought here on the West Coast. And this story here is from January 2013, and they were talking about the recent storms, how they were, well, they're devastating to the endangered salmon. They're talking about the torrential downpours, flooding lately might be good for parched, drought-stricken lands of California, but it's disastrous for endangered salmon. And he says here we have eggs that were just recently laid in Lagunitas Creek. Now remember the creek, because, you know, this is, it all plays into stories that I've researched that go all the way back here, like I said, all the way back to 1949, but it's trying to make sense of what's happening with the salmon population. And I'm sharing with you that they're, you know, they were talking about these eggs here, how they're just washing away now, you know, and that's important, because there's, you know, you'll see as we go forward. And he says, we're also prepared to other fish to go into the ocean, which hatched a year ago, but they're struggling to find refuge from high flows. This is important here. It's all going to tie into the whole habitat, industrialization, how it's all changed. And I'm telling you this, hopefully this video is going to be a big wake up for a lot of you. So the big one that I've just, I had no idea that this was going on until the date that I thought this was over. I've talked about that in my show last night. I was saying, hey guys, I found that, this story back in 2015, how the Navy was doing these exercises along the entire West Coast from Alaska down to South America. That's right. And they actually admitted that there was going to be lots of killing. So this is a fresh story here, and this is from 2017. And they're back at it again. This one here says that this May, the Navy will again sail its warships into the Gulf of Alaska, where they will engage in military maneuvers and possibly drop bombs, launch torpedoes and missiles, and engage in activities that stand a significant chance of poisoning those once pristine waters while it prepares for future battles elsewhere on the planet. Think of it as a war against wildlife, an assault on the environment and local coastal communities. And this is important because remember I was telling you about that word fecundity? I was educated in French. I don't even know what the heck fecundity is, Now I know. And the fecundity of the salmon plays an important role with the fact of these coastal communities and where they're located. And bada boom, bada bing, you're going to find out that Alaska is like probably the worst place where we want the Navy launching these torpedoes and missiles. Anyways, you can see here, I underline the point where they're saying that, it's one of the last places left in the world or they still have healthy salmon runs. And now they're going up there, bada boom, bada bing. It's called NE17 for Edge 2017, and a training exercise right in our neighborhood. These war games, which occur every other year, include ships, aircraft, ordnance, and the widespread use of sonar across more than 42,000 square nautical miles of the marine environment of the Gulf of Alaska. And it is well known that sonar causes injury and death of whales, dolphin, and other marine life. It has been shown that whales will even beach themselves to escape the noise, which is more than 100 decibels louder underwater than even the loudest rock concert. And thanks to a major lawsuit against them, the Navy agreed to limit, they limit the use of certain kinds of sonar in Southern California and Hawaii. Just there though, just Southern California, Hawaii, due to its impact on the endangered blue whale along with other species, but not in the Gulf of Alaska. I'm telling you guys, this is not good news. So as in 2015, the Navy's plans threaten an area of the Gulf that couldn't be more biologically sensitive or rich in wildlife. I'm telling you, I know about this because I happen to live here on Vancouver Island, right on the West Coast. I came here from the city of Ottawa. And, it's beautiful even along, you leave the city of Ottawa, you don't have to drive for hours and hours to get into beautiful wilderness, but it's even nicer out here, I must admit. There's lots of wildlife and the trees, humongous. Long story short, it's like beautiful. And these guys are, they're training in this area, and it includes the State of Marine Alaska Protected Area. That's right. Their training area includes the State of Alaska Marine Protected Area, a National Oceanic and Administration Fisheries Protected Area, and both the Gulf of Alaska Seamount Protected and Slope Habitat Conservation Areas. What's going on here? Houston, we've got a big problem here. There's something going on. Nevertheless, the Navy is requesting permits to use live ordnance, including bombs, missiles, and torpedoes, along with active and passive sonar in realistic war training exercise that could release as much as 352,000 pounds of expended materials into those waters, including, according to the Navy's own environmental impact statement, missiles, bombs, and torpedoes. These water support some of the most valuable fisheries left in the United States, and the commercial fishing industry in the single largest private sector employer in the state of Alaska, providing over 63,000 jobs. Nevertheless, the Navy's own EIS claims that fish in the area are at risk of chemical exposures of various sorts because the war games will introduce chromium, lead, tungsten, nickel, cadmium, cyanide, and ammonium perchlorate, along with numerous other heavy metals and toxic substances into Alaska waters. Anyways, I left the link there if you guys want to read all of this, because this whole thing is rather disgusting. So let's go on here. I actually wanted to show this later on, but I guess I'm here now, so you already see it. So there's a potential here that in 2017, the commercial, not recreational, but you never know, might be recreational also. It's early in, it's on standby. They still haven't made up their mind yet, but there is definitely a potential that it could be a 2017 commercial closure. They're just talking about it right now. Okay. They've been, for the past few days, along with advisory agencies and entities, have been in Sacramento, California, discussing the adoption of final regulatory measures for the season's salmon harvest. The council will pick 3 alternatives that vary in a number of ways. Both notably, each has one thing in common: a complete closure of commercial fishery in the Klamath Management Zone, and that zone stretches from Humberg Mountain in Oregon to Horse Mountain in California, covering a stretch of coastline approximately from Port Orford, Oregon to Arcata, California. One reason for the restricted harvest is the forecasted, so that it's not, you don't know, it's forecasted small returns of salmon to the Klamath River system, according to the PFMC report. So here's the 3 different alternatives you can see here. You know, they would close most of America's Pacific coast to commercial fishing, and then they would allocate 0 salmon to the Klamath River recreational fishing, which would be allowed over 100 fish in the first 2 alternatives. So yeah, there's a potential this may be closing down. And what do we have? Well, we have the Navy up there just wrecking the shit out of the whole area. So, I mean, come on, don't tell me, even if you don't like salmon or you don't like seafood, you have to admit, is this not crazy? Just a little bit. Think about it. Think about it. I guess they all want us to eat nothing but GMO, nothing, you know, that's from nature and clean anymore. Let's just dump and, you know, toxic and bomb it and kill it. Anyways, as I said, this whole 1949 thing is where I decided to do my research, or what led me down this path. And what I came across was the fecundity and the life history of Chinook salmon. So this is a book here, and in this page where we're at 325 at this point, and they're talking about the different populations and the variations in fecundity depending on where they live. And one of the points they were finding is in this table right here, the degrees of latitude, northern latitude, you can see that it increased. Okay, the fecundity is in the thousands here, from 4, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 10,000, and the further they were in northern altitude, the higher the fecundity was. How do you like them apples? So that all goes back to what I was saying, how this whole Alaska thing is, you know, this is important now. I don't know if you noticed this, but right here it says 2 examples of the relationship between length and fecundity for Chinook salmon. Nushagak River Chinook stream, or stream type race having high average fecundity, and Quitsam River Chinook, an ocean type race having low average fecundity. So that was the other thing they found, that if the salmon were to head out into the ocean upon their first year, they had a lower fecundity rate. However, if they're a type of salmon that would hang out in fresh water for that first year of life, they had a higher fecundity rate. Anyways, that's just a little incident. But what I did notice is that these lakes here, the Neshegak and Quitsam, these are all in British Columbia, where I live. So again, this is, it stretches all the way up here. Anyways, yes, right here. This population, as well as 3 others, Quingsam and Putlej and Rivers Inlet, all in British Columbia, different from all other populations in the slope of a regression of fecundity on length. Anyways, I'm kind of getting off track here. Let's stick with how the further are they up north, the more, fecundity. It's the ability to produce an abundance of offspring or new growth. How fertile are you? Yes, sirree. So depending where you live, you're a little bit more fertile. So it turns out, while I was doing this search, here we are back at this Luapula here, and they're talking about the year 1949. So he was saying, I've superimposed several notable events that occurred on the fishery during and after 1949. The disappearance of the Luapula salmon being one. Each year, catches, whether high or low, are precipitated and largely determined by corresponding high or low rainfall 2 years earlier. Bada boom, bada bing. That was the one. I was like, whoa, hold on a second. You put that story together with the other story that I got and that story, I'm like, okay, now you know why I'm connecting the dots, right? This is where the magic came through. I'm like, okay, now I've got this. This all makes sense. And we're getting to it right now. Just remember the key components here is that they're tying in the highs and lows in they're determined in corresponding high and low rainfall 2 years earlier. Remember that part, because I'm about to show you another graph, and you're going to want to remember that part of the entire thing. So the next one was, okay, like I said, it was the 1949 thing, and it was this story here that I picked up on April the 8th, and they were talking about how at the Bonneville Dam that there was the lowest since 1949, and I was telling you guys, this is not a Fukushima thing. There was no Fukushima in 1949. Why were the salmon that low that year? Well, it turns out it was because it was high, not very much water, and it was drought. And turns out that all works back with this California's recent storm, the story from January the 13th. And they were talking about right here, that Central California's coast cohos are critically endangered subspecies. Historically, they thrived in creeks that ran through dense redwood forests, hiding from the elements in pools formed from downed branches, trunks, and vegetation. But now that much of the redwoods have been decimated, these fish are more vulnerable to floods and droughts. Bada boom, bada bing. This whole thing is starting to make sense. Why a lot of the California salmon population are having such a hard time. You remember what I just shared with you, right? The 2 years corresponding. Watch this map. This is where the whole thing just like, okay, we got it. Houston, we've made contact. This all makes sense. So again, this is they call it the U.S. Drought Monitor, releases weekly maps of water conditions across the United States. So you can see November 2015. Whoops, I just messed that up. Why did that just go away? Hold on a second. I got it. Okay. There we go. February 2012. So the darker the color gets, the higher the drought. So remember, we're talking about 2 years, right? So we would be looking at droughts that would have happened in the year 2015, essentially. 2014, 2015, and essentially look at the red starting to show up all along California. This is going to make so much sense to you. I'm like, oh, bada boom, bada bing. Thanks so much, connecting dots. Yeah, I'm telling you, this is where I connect the dots. Look at the dark here, 2014. Look at the drought. Heavy drought here. This is why the salmon were all suffering back then, because it's 2 years behind. Look at 2015. Look at the drought again. California, major drought. Red, dark red, orange. It's not good. It's not good. So we've just had this good rainfall in 2016, 2017. So you can almost make a prediction that within 2 years from now, we'll probably have a rebound on the salmon along the West Coast, specifically in California, where it was hit with so much drought. Because I was just sharing with you how the very top story, it was the opposite. They're talking about how now the recent storms, there's been too much water, and now, well, it's had the opposite. Now it's endangering them that way. It's, yin yang, these poor damn fish, unless habitat is perfect, and not all these redwoods been decimated, and creeks being dumped with all types of chemicals, and it's disgusting what goes on. But anyways, let's go on to the Navy part, because this is the part where a lot of you, it was wake up time, right? So U.S. Navy killing thousands of whales and dolphins. This was on February 2014. Here's another story from January the 7th of 2002. In a landmark study, the U.S. Navy has concluded that it killed at least 6 whales in an accident involving common ship sonars. Did you get me? Did you get me? Please tell me you've got that. That was like, what the hell did you just say? These are just the common ship base. This is not even the other shit that I'm talking about. The boom, 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 ba, ba, boom. And the whole reason why they're doing this, you know what this is all about, right? This is to make sure that no submarine comes along the West Coast and launches a missile and destroys the interior United States, whatever the case may be. That's what's going on. So I don't know. This is not good. I mean, it's a good thing the one lawsuit was passed where they can't do it on Southern California and Hawaii, but the fact is that it's happening everywhere else. And as what I just showed you guys is that they're actually doing this. They're beginning in May up in Alaska, and I just showed you guys this is like the most fertile waters in the world. The USA has the biggest fishery is taken up there. 63,000 jobs alone, U.S. jobs alone. Anyways, this is not good. And, these events are set to commence and take place from the year 2014 to 2019. So I'm telling you right now, you better get used to these whales washing up. It's not going to stop. It says, depending on the vicinity of the animals detonating these explosives on the water, it will kill whales and dolphins and injure many, according to 2 environmental impact statements released by the military themselves. It says here, keep in mind, these events have been occurring for over a number of years and are responsible for the death of large amounts of marine life. The Navy is not denying these facts. They admitted that most of the deaths would come from detonation of explosives, sonar testing, or animals being hit by ships. The guy says, I do not trust Navy estimates. According to their computer models, this activity could kill hundreds of whales. The Navy said it developed the estimates by totaling the hours it will practice with sonar, torpedoes, missiles, explosives, and other equipment for 5 years. It's already been responsible for thousands of deaths. So they're here, you take action, send an email. I don't know how many of you people watch my videos. In fact, a lot of people get upset because they just want it to be Fukushima. There's no tests. Remember that, folks. All these people that keep telling you it's all the Fukushima radiation, there's none of them. I'm the only one on YouTube who's actually raising funds for a gamma spectrum. In fact, I'm the only one on YouTube who talks about a gamma spectrometer. None of them ever talk about testing fish. If the radiation was so high in the Pacific Ocean that it was actually killing whales, by golly gee, we shouldn't have a problem testing a lot of fish and marine life and finding lots of radiation in them, no? Sad. Anyways, so they've admitted to it. And here's the other part. I found this story while I was doing the research on this whole, the theme was the Navy admits killing millions of, and that was my search term, because I remember I'd done this story back in 2014, or was it 2015? You guys might recall the stories on my YouTube channel. 11 months ago, I talked about it again. Anyhow, when I was doing the search this time around, I couldn't remember the exact, the titles of the stories I'd found. So I just, Navy admits, because I remember that they admitted to the whole thing. So I figured, well, I'll just do that search. And sure enough, I found them. And while I was doing that, I'm like, I found this other story here. Navy admits to release chemicals known to what? 34 tons of DU on the seabed in Pacific Northwest waters alone? That means they've done it elsewhere? I'm like, hold on a second. Did you say 34 tons in the Pacific Northwest? Because that's where I live, alone. I don't know where you guys live, but they're saying here in my place, it's alone. So they've done it elsewhere, but I'm just saying this is not good. So I decided I'm going to click that damn story. And sure enough, where is it? Navy admits to having released chemicals known to injure infants' brains. The Navy's 2015 Northwest Training and Testing estimates that thousands of warfare testing and training events will conduct over 200,000 stressors for use of missiles, torpedoes, guns, and other explosives. Anyways, I'm trying to find the... somehow I must have closed the other window because I had the exact story that I was looking for regarding the DU. Here. It also used a significant number of weapons that contained depleting uranium. DU is supposed to be phased out in 2002, but a draft from the Navy from December 2008 said that, wow, 7,200 rounds of cannon shells, 28% of total gun shells would be used closed-in weapons. Now, I'm trying to find the one here where they're... Here, is this the one? I live on the island up here, the gray one. This is Seattle, Tacoma. It's the state of Washington all here. California's down below. It says that the Navy refuses to disclose the actual amount of DU already on the seafloor in warning area 237. So 237 is this area right here. Yeah, like I said, this is not good. Large portions of which are situated within the boundaries of the Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary. Yeah, imagine that. So, yeah, depleted uranium is the depleted uranium. It's as malicious as the Syrian chemical weapons. They just dumped it. Yeah. Anyways, this is disgusting. Hopefully, this whole thing has woken you up to the importance of the, well, rain. Absolutely. This is the big thing I found is when it's when the habitat's not good and there's a drought, well, 2 years later, you're going to see the consequences in the salmon population, and it all tied back to that whole 1949 drought. So turns out that that's the whole reason why we're going to have a low salmon count this year. We've had several bad years. Well, as you've already seen here on this graph, essentially 2013 is where it really started kicking in, the drought. By 2014, as you can see by the color of the map, it got worse and worse. Well, I'm not going to have to repeat it. You already know, you saw it. We all lived through it. It's one of the things I talk on my YouTube channel was the Pacific blob, how the whole Pacific Ocean was warming up during those years. And, you know, one person who had been scuba diving along the California coast at the same location for the last 17 years of their life had said that they'd never seen the massive abundance of new marine life in that ecosystem or in that specific underwater habitat because the warmer water had brought a group of fish that, you know, would never normally come up to this area. So hopefully this is giving you some insight to this collapse of the fish. Obviously, that's not a 100% or even a 90% collapse. There is a problem, Houston, obviously, and it sure as hell isn't helping having the U.S. Navy, you know, 5 years of bombing and missiles, and oh boy, it's just sad, you know. And when you understand how the world is, it's all rigged. And I don't mean to get off track, you know, but this is one of the things why I decided to come out here and voice my opinions, because I was researching conspiracies in 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2012. By then, I kind of slowed back because I realized, well, it's the gangs here on YouTube. They control it. This is why I've got this whole fraud and disinformation, so you can understand that, you know, how Jeff Rense was once collaborating with Alex Jones, and Jeff Rense and the Coast Capital and Fairwinds Energy with dutchsinse, and you know, so many of them, and they all tie back. Coincidentally, you know, all ties back to Russia Today News. It's just one big, you know, circle of disinformation and corruption on YouTube. So hopefully this video has brought a little bit of insight to what's happening in the world of salmon, and I'll see you out here another time, folks. If you have any comments, go ahead and leave a comment, and hopefully I can help you out. Take care.